Our guest on This Is America is Manuel Sager. He's ambassador from Switzerland to the United States. He's the former head of the Political Affairs Division of Switzerland's Department of Foreign Affairs and holds law degrees from Duke University and the University of Zurich. Mr. Ambassador, thank you so much for joining us.
Pleasure to be here, Dennis.
If you threw out the word Switzerland, most people would free associate and they would say banking and skiing. What are a couple of other things that people should know about Switzerland that are apart from those two?
Okay. Well, right off the bat, most people also know that Switzerland is neutral. And anybody who has gone to Switzerland also knows that Switzerland is a very beautiful country. But what a lot of people don't know is how competitive we are and how innovative. If you think about it, Switzerland per capita has the highest amount of Nobel Prizes of any country in the world.
Huh.
And I'm confident that this is for the most part because of our top-notch educational system and our research facilities that we have, top-notch universities, and also because we attract a lot of research, a lot of brain power from abroad. Switzerland has traditionally been a very open society. About 23% of our population is foreign-born, and which means that we attract a lot of talent from the rest of the world, and mainly from Europe, but also from other parts of the world.
You used the word education in your answer right there. What makes the education system there so unique?
I firmly believe that part of our success story really is that we have this apprenticeship system. About 2/3 of our young people do not go to university. They go to vocational educational training, which means that 2 days a week they go to school where they learn math and languages and accounting, whatever their field of specialization may be. And 3 days a week they go they work in a company where they learn a trade. And that makes for a very skilled, a very flexible workforce, and that can also weather economic downturns very, very well. And obviously there's different factors that go into this, but I'm sure that this is also, this educational system that we have is part of the reason why we have only right now 2.8% unemployment.
Wow, yeah.
And also very, very low, comparatively speaking, very low youth unemployment, which of course is crucial.
Number one in competitiveness. I read that someplace, attributed to some
the World Economic Forum.
Big organization.
Right.
What does that mean, number one in competitiveness?
Well, it's as always, when you have these kind of statistics, there's a number of factors that go into this. But it's one of the main reason we are so competitive is because we add a lot of value to whatever we import and re-export. And again, I think our educational system has a lot to do with it, but we don't have any natural resources in Switzerland. We have, other than water, with which we produce about 60% of our electricity, but and brain power. And so we try to use our brain power that we have as effectively as possible. And I think that has really, over time, that has helped us to become one of the most competitive, if not the most competitive country in the world.
How about the pillars that drive the economy? We would know, as I said at the top, banking, insurance is in there someplace, tourism, obviously. Manufacturing, that would surprise some folks. What are you manufacturing and what are you exporting?
Well, actually, our industrial output is 8 times higher than China's per capita. And it's twice as high as the United States. And we do have a fairly important manufacturing base. Again, I think mostly because of the dual educational system that we have. We have been able to keep a manufacturing base in our country based on highly skilled workforce. And so that's one of the pillars, an important pillar. Of course, exports is incredibly important. Exports of primarily pharmaceuticals, of fine tools, heavy machinery that I mentioned, financial products, jewelry, watches. Those are the pillars of our export industry, which accounts for 50% of our GDP. So as we sometimes say, every other franc we earn abroad.
Population is about what?
About 8 million.
8 million people. And the culture is amazing because you got 3 or 4 different cultures going on at the same time. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, of course, the way Switzerland has evolved through history, we have...
You're right in the middle of everybody, aren't you?
We're in the middle of everybody, that's right, yes. We have, of course, the majority is German-speaking, then we have a French-speaking part of the country and an Italian-speaking part of the country. And then a Romansh-speaking part of the country, that's a Romance language spoken by about 25,000 people. As native speakers, and so we have, yes, we do have we do belong not only linguistically to different parts of Europe, but also culturally. And as you travel through Switzerland, you can very much see the differences as you go from one linguistic area to the other.
So when you say see the differences, what would we see that would be different?
You would see it in the architecture.
Interesting.
The way churches are built, for example. They're very significant differences.
Wow. Let's hold on that note. I got a lot of questions I want to ask you. We take a little break right about now. We're talking with the ambassador of the Swiss Confederation. That's the accurate term. Mm-hmm. We're talking with the ambassador. Back on the other side, this is America. This is America is made possible by the National Education Association, the nation's largest advocate for children and public education. Punsan Corporation, forging a higher global standard. The CTC Foundation, AFO Communications, and the Rotendaro Family Trust. So, Ambassador, paint a picture in our minds of the bordering countries. So, because you've just mentioned we got 3 major cultures functioning, which is fascinating. So, surround us with all of the. It's landlocked, right? So you got everybody on everybody's side.
Yes, we have, of course, Germany to the north. We have France to the west. We have Italy to the south. And we have Liechtenstein and Austria to the east. Mm.
So, population, you said 8 million. How many people? So you got mountains, and a kind of a basin in there someplace.
That's correct.
Is that where most of the people would be?
That's where most people live, between the Lake of Geneva and the Lake of Constance.
You got all lakes all over the place, huh?
That's true.
Lakes and mountains, huh?
Yes, it's very pretty.
Capital city is Bern, but then, so how many people would be in Bern?
About 120,000.
So it's fairly small.
It's small.
But that's where the seat of the government is?
That's right.
But the 2 big world-class cities that everybody knows would be Geneva and Zurich.
Right.
Home to many, many organizations, huh?
Particularly Geneva, yes, in terms of international organizations, governmental organizations, non-governmental organizations. Geneva is, of course, one of the world capitals. Mm.
So Red Cross, United Nations, World Health Organization, the list goes on and on and on.
Right.
Is it because of the central location or because of the beauty of the cities, or what?
Well, it really started with Geneva being the second headquarters of the United Nations. And that was established after World War II. And if you'd like to go even further back, the League of Nations, which was formed after World War I, was also in Geneva. And so it's, and then of course everything else more or less developed around this core of United Nations organizations.
But why are you so late in coming into the United Nations? That was only 2002. That's only 10 years ago.
Yes.
Why was that? And And was the United Nations folks operating in Geneva even before you came on board?
Of course, yes. And the folks operating at the United Nations in Geneva were very much liked, and there was no opposition to the United Nations as such. But until the early 2000s, people felt in Switzerland that being a member of the United Nations would be incompatible with our status as a neutral country.
Oh, that's right, because that. If there was another thing, when we were talking about 3 things people don't know, well, they probably should know that armed neutrality was the phrase that I picked up, has been going on for a couple hundred years, huh?
Right, and it actually goes back to what you just mentioned before. We are the neighboring countries, if you go through European history, had been at war with each other over the centuries many, many times. And for Switzerland, having these distinct linguistic regions, we were always at great danger of being sucked into those wars. So being neutral wasn't really a sign of indifference to the conflicts in the area, or trying to stay out of it, so much as a matter of internal cohesion.
In World War I and World War II, how do you avoid getting invaded? In
World War II, eventually the German army probably would have invaded at some point, but fortunately it didn't come to that, and the war was over before that happened.
Did Switzerland have to have some kind of a relationship or concessions or anything else like that to avoid that?
Well, Switzerland was in a very difficult situation at the time. As you said, it is not only landlocked, but it was during World War II. It was completely surrounded by the Axis country. Germany, of course, in the north, Italy in the south, France and Austria. France was occupied. So it was very difficult to survive, because all the imports had to go through enemy territory, if you will. So we could have not have survived without making certain concessions in order to be able to import oil and whatever we needed, energy, even food.
So that might have stemmed the invasion as well.
That may have stemmed the invasion. Plus, as you said, we had already at that point our neutrality was armed, and we were through history we had a reputation of having a fairly effective
and that serves you very well, because a lot of times you hear about countries going through Switzerland as a mediator in some kind of disputes. Do they do a lot of stuff like behind the scenes?
Well, just to go back to World War II, you're familiar today with our mandate that we have for the United States to represent U.S. interests in Iran, for example, and in Cuba.
Yeah. Yep.
But in World War II, we had 35 mandates like that. We represent the interests of 35 countries in other countries that were at war with each other. And even in the 70s, there were still 24 mandates of that nature that we had.
Well, you're walking a tightrope, because one of the things I read suggested that actually maybe the Allies mistakenly bombed some areas of Switzerland. Is that correct?
That did happen. There is one part of northern Switzerland, that the canton of Schaffhausen, generally our border with Germany is the Rhine. But there is one part in an exclave of Swiss territory that sticks out into Germany, and there is the assumption that the pilots got this wrong, and they bombed that part of Switzerland, assuming that it was part of Germany.
That's fascinating. You used the word just a moment ago, canton. Canton?
Yes.
Is that like a state?
It's like a state, yes.
A state. Yeah. So how many are there?
26.
26.
Mm-hmm.
I'm fascinated with the government. So we covered a little culture, a little economy. It's a very, I don't want to say wealthy, because that doesn't sound right, but the GDP per person is very high, isn't it? I mean, it's
about $45,000. Yes.
Is that right? Mm-hmm. 45. So 45 a piece. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. The government fascinates me. Direct democracy. What does that mean in our language? You got a president, you got a parliament, but the people are involved, aren't they?
Yes, it means that at the end of the day, all important questions are decided by the people. And there's essentially there's two institutions that make up this direct democracy. One is what we call a referendum, which means that once Parliament has passed a law, if you collect 50,000 signatures, you can force a referendum, a popular vote on the law. And if a majority of the people, the voting population, thinks it's a bad law, then it will be repealed. If the majority votes against the law, then it will be repealed. The second mechanism is the constitutional initiative. And there, if you want to introduce a new concept, for example, to get rid of plastic bottles, then you can collect 100,000 signatures, and if you manage to do so within a certain limit of time, then you can again force a ballot, and if you win, if the population, the majority of the voting population backs your idea, then it will be put in the Constitution.
So you're not a member of the EU.
We're not. No.
And probably thank your lucky stars on a given day for not being part of the EU, because it's troubled, huh?
Well, there's pros and cons to everything. I mean, they granted there would be certain advantages for being, particularly in the exchange, in freedom of services, for example. I mean, there's specific areas in trade. Not so much trade, because there we have agreements. We have
oh, that's right, you do.
We have about 120 agreements with the European Union, and the free movement of labor. If you are a European Union citizen and you have a contract to work in Switzerland, then you can move to Switzerland without work visa. I mean, these exchanges are fairly well established. But one area we don't have an agreement in services, for example. So it specifically there would be advantages to being an EU member, but overall, so far the people have in opinion polls have voiced their opposition. And again, I would imagine that our direct democracy, our system of direct democracy, would probably be one of the reasons, because we would delegate, obviously, a fair amount of power to Brussels. And we couldn't, of course, we couldn't afford to have these popular votes on issues that are really decided in Brussels.
Yes. You'd be beholden to them.
Right.
I would be remiss if I didn't put on the table banking in Switzerland. What are the myths? What are the facts? What has changed over the last 10 or 15 years?
Well, I would say that the most important changes have happened over the last couple of years. And there has been controversy, particularly also over tax evasion. But we have, a few years ago, the government decided that to do away with this myth, if you will, and that our banks could only accept money that is absolutely clean, and that also measures would be put in place to do that, to ascertain that there would be no reason to perpetuate this myth, and that we would have an absolutely clean financial center in Switzerland. That policy was put in place about 3 years ago.
And what a lot of people don't know about Switzerland that I get from my reading is that you've been very proactive in returning money to countries that have had dictators and things like that. Can you educate us on that?
Sure. No other country in the world has returned more assets, stolen assets from dictators than Switzerland. That again was particularly came to pass in connection with the Arab Spring. Switzerland was one of the first, in some cases the first country that froze assets of some of those dictators, and is now in close negotiations with countries like Tunisia but also Egypt for the return of those assets. And that is really, that is a very good story, and that's a good story that is universally recognized, that we are really today one of the leaders in returning assets of so-called politically exposed persons, dictators, international criminals, and what have you.
You have a background in law and also in the Foreign Service. As a kid, well, it's a question I have in my mind. As a kid, how many Swiss Army knives did you have? Everybody knows Swiss Army knives, right?
That's right. Well, at that time,
did you have a collection?
I probably did have a collection. It wasn't as necessary to have it today. You need a collection because every time you go through airport security, they take it away from you.
Oh, that's true.
So that was a little easier back then. When I was growing up, you could probably board a plane with a pocket knife in your pocket. But yes, I mean that's. But I never thought that I would be a diplomat. That was a thought that developed relatively late in life after I had already started a professional career as a lawyer in Phoenix, Arizona. Actually.
Yes, as a matter of fact. And you went to Duke, right, for a while?
I got a master's at Duke Law School. That's correct. And then I landed a job in Phoenix, Arizona with a law firm there, and then practiced law there for a couple of years.
When you are here in the United States, what do you like most about the United States?
I have to say the people. And that is also, I tell anybody and everybody, if I really have a lot of fun in my profession, in my job here, apart from all the challenges, obviously, that are associated with it, it is because people are so open, they're communicative, they're enthusiastic, optimistic, and it's just it's a very nice environment to work in.
And when you're away from Switzerland, what do you miss most about being away from Switzerland?
Being away from Switzerland?
Yeah.
Well, of course, it's friends and family, and I've lived all in all about for 15 years in the United States. My wife, as you know, is from this country, and but of course my roots are still very much in Switzerland, and in terms of emotional ties to the scenery, to cities and the mountains, of course, where I learned how to ski, like most Swiss. And but also in terms of relationships, it's just it's who I am. I'm Swiss.
As we come to the close, tell me a little bit just about your mission as ambassador now. What's on your plate, and specifically the important relationship between Switzerland and the United States.
Yes. Of course, as any diplomat, sometimes we're called upon to put out fires in bilateral relations. You mentioned the financial area, although I'm very optimistic that we'll be able to resolve a few outstanding issues that we still have. And then, of course, we have a lot of delegations that come from Switzerland, and we arrange for meetings with them, with Congress, with the administration. But apart from that, our main task here is just to tell a good story. And so many good stories to tell, and of course, first and foremost about our relationship with our relations with the United States. We were at some point in the 19th century, we were called sister republics because of the similar constitutional makeup and similar history that we had. But today, our relationships are so close, particularly in the economic area. Switzerland is Swiss companies make Switzerland one of the largest investors here in the United States. If you think about it, 8 million people, and we were in 2010 in terms of capital flow in investments. Switzerland was the largest investor here in the United States of new investments in capital flows, and in 2011, I believe we were number 2. So we have as you can imagine, we have a big stake in a prosperous U.S. economy as well.
We're doing our best. We're doing our best.
Thank you.
I've never been to Switzerland. I'd love to go. If you were the tour director, you took off your ambassador's hat, you put on your tour director's hat.
Which I have done.
You have done. Okay. That begs a question, but what would you have us see if we were there for 2 or 3 days?
Well, in 2 or 3 days, you can see pretty much everything in Switzerland. And I would probably take you, well, I would certainly take you to the mountains. On a beautiful day, I have to say, to drive along the lake of Thun and see the mountains in the background and the deep blue lake, it's just really, really breathtaking. It's beautiful. Then I would probably show you a couple of cities. You have to see Zurich, you have to see Geneva, Lucerne. So I can guarantee you I could fill your 2 or 3 days.
Thank you, Ambassador. We're at the end of our time. I thank you for the education. I'm thrilled to learn about the country and also about its important relationship with the United States. Mr. Ambassador, thank you.
Dennis.
Thank you. For information about my new book, The Chance of a Lifetime, and online video for all This Is America programs, visit our website, thisisamerica.net. And now you can follow us on Facebook. This is America is made possible by the National Education Association, the nation's largest advocate for children and public education. Punsan Corporation, forging a higher global standard. The CTC Foundation, AFO Communications, and the Rotendaro Family Trust.